You know that old saying, we all must suffer for our art. Well, dear viewers, some people suffer for their craft by putting their bodies on the line, transforming themselves beyond recognition, or even losing their sanity for the sake of a role. But honestly, none of that compares to the level of torture I had to endure this weekend, because I watched The Witcher Season 4. Oh dear God, I tried. I really did. But by the combined powers of men, elves, dwarves, and whatever unholy creatures the writers were smoking about, this show fought me every step of the way. In the end, it won. The man who survived Blood Origin, endured the Acolyte, and even dragged himself through The Last of Us Season 2, finally met his match. The Witcher Season 4 isn't just bad, it's a new form of misery. It's like someone gathered the absolute worst ideas from every lazy sci-fi and fantasy show of the last decade and decided, hey, why not mix them all into one giant, steaming cauldron of creative failure? What came out isn't storytelling. It's a curse in HD. You know what's truly impressive? The Witcher. Season 4 somehow manages to take every single bad idea from modern fantasy and mash them all into one glorious dumpster fire. Imagine the awkward, plastic performances and urban diversity overload of Willow, the soap opera melodrama of Rings of Power, the political obsession of The Acolyte, and the painfully unfunny characters of Peacemaker. All shaken together, poured into a broken goblet, and served with the fake prestige of House of the Dragon, minus the intelligence, wit, or a single character worth caring about. What I'm trying to say is, if you thought The Witcher Season 4 couldn't possibly be worse than expected, you're wrong. It's much, much worse. All right then, let's get this over with quickly, so I can slip into something more comfortable, like a coma. The story kicks off right after Season 3, where our three leads have been scattered to the winds. Everyone, and I mean everyone, including humans, elves, and probably squirrels, is now hunting for Ciri. She's on the run under a fake identity and ends up joining a band of, let's say, strategically diverse adventurers. Because of course she does. Seriously, how is this show even real? The only thing missing is a guy in a wheelchair and a TikTok influencer to make it look like a promo for modern-day Dungeons and Dragons. Anyway, this merry bunch calls themselves the Rats, and their noble mission? Stealing food and money from honest people. But hey, that's totally fine in modern storytelling, as long as you're poor and diverse, right? And just when you think the show can't get any more predictable, Ciri starts a romantic relationship with another girl. Oh yes, you heard that right. Ciri's now gay. Who could have possibly seen that coming in a 2020s fantasy series? Now, don't get me wrong, representation is great, but when every single female friendship on screen turns into a romance, it starts to feel less like progress, and more like a weird Hollywood obsession. If I were a young viewer watching this, I'd probably start thinking that every emotional connection automatically leads to a romantic one, because apparently that's the modern way. Anyway, while Ciri's off bonding with the Rats, Yennefer is out there girl-bossing her way across the continent. Her mission? Build an army to take down the evil magician who's now running the Brotherhood of Mages. And despite being a character who's always relied on magic rather than muscles, she's suddenly slicing through armored knights like she's Geralt himself. Because modern writing logic, I guess? Naturally, she's also searching for Ciri, because that's literally the plot of every single season. Ciri goes missing, everyone panics, and the audience wonders why they're still watching this nonsense. And of course, everyone's still looking for Ciri. Apparently, even Emperor Emhyr has realized the Ciri he's been proudly parading around is actually fake Ciri, which, you know, puts a bit of a dent in his grand plan to produce a child with elder blood. Yes, that's a real plot point. I wish I was joking. Oh, and let's not forget, Geralt is technically in the show too. Barely. You remember how people complained in the last season that Geralt had basically become a side character in his own series while Yennefer and Ciri took over? Well, buckle up, because Season 4 takes that complaint and turns it into a full-blown mission statement. Now, we've got even more girl bosses to lead the charge, and poor Geralt occasionally gets tossed a bone, like a random fight scene to remind us he still exists. Usually, he's saving some helpless woman from bandits, or preventing another one from being burned as a witch. Spotting a theme yet? Meanwhile, he's constantly moping around. thinking about Ciri and Yennefer like a sad ex scrolling through old photos at 3 a.m. Honestly, Henry Cavill must be laughing himself silly right now. No wonder he bailed on this dumpster fire. You can practically feel the writers' disdain for Geralt. It's like they resent the fact that the show is supposed to be about him. So instead, they do everything possible to break him down, sideline him, and make him look irrelevant. Which brings us to poor Liam Hemsworth. I genuinely feel bad for the guy. Sure, the paycheck was probably great, but career-wise? This is a poisoned chalice, if there ever was one. He's been handed the impossible job of replacing Cavill, working under a team that clearly sees Geralt as an inconvenience. The result? For the first few episodes, Hemsworth's Geralt just exists. He wanders around in circles, doing absolutely nothing important while the plot bends over backwards to focus on other, more relevant characters. And when he does show up, it's not exactly an improvement. His performance has all the energy of a wet napkin at a feminist book club. It really drives home just how much heavy lifting Henry Cavill was doing to keep this show afloat. Then there's Jaskier, still the most irritating man alive. Every time he opens his mouth, I feel the overwhelming urge to grab a drill and give myself a DIY lobotomy. He struts through every scene with all the subtlety of an 80s movie parody of a flamboyant artist. And those so-called rats? Oh, they're just a pack of cardboard stereotypes with dialogue so wooden it could build a shed. None of them can act, and they all talk like they just walked in from a Starbucks in 2025. This kind of stuff completely destroys immersion. Even when Game of Thrones started falling apart, at least it looked like a believable medieval world. The Witcher, on the other hand, feels like an SNL sketch shot inside an abandoned castle with Halloween costumes ordered off Temu. Only difference, there's no punchline. It's almost unbelievable how a show that reportedly costs hundreds of millions of dollars manages to look and feel this cheap. But somehow Netflix pulled it off. And of course, all the old problems are still here, just cranked up to 11. You've got an overly tangled plot juggling way too many factions and storylines that the writers clearly can't keep track of. You've got hammy acting that makes Xena Warrior Princess look like Lord of the Rings. And geography that makes zero sense. Every town, village, and kingdom looks exactly the same, because apparently medieval fantasy now has to mirror modern urban equality. It's so ridiculous that not only do all the locations look identical, now even The Witcher itself looks identical to every other generic fantasy show made in the last 5 years. It's like if fantasy storytelling was mass-produced by IKEA, flat, functional, soulless, and guaranteed to fall apart halfway through. And of course, the never-ending modern obsession continues. Every female character must be a flawless, all-powerful, emotionally invincible girl boss whose only weakness is the men holding her back. I hate to break it to Netflix, but the core audience for this series, mostly men, and maybe, just maybe, alienating your main fan base isn't the smartest business move. And if this is the best they can offer fans, well, don't be shocked when people start checking out faster than Geralt from a writer's meeting. It's genuinely tragic because The Witcher had everything it needed to become the next Game of Thrones. The budget, the cast, the world, the loyal fan base, it was all there. The potential to dominate fantasy TV for a decade, maybe even build an entire cinematic universe of spin-offs. All they had to do was simple: respect the source material. Stay true to the world that fans loved. But instead, they decided to reinvent it through the lens of modern Hollywood values. And, well, they missed the target by a mile. They didn't just fumble the ball, they kicked it into orbit. As many critics have said before, when you turn your storytelling into a political sermon, you might score social points, but you lose the audience that made your story matter in the first place. And that's exactly what happened here. Showrunner Lauren Hissrich and her team had the keys to a beloved fantasy kingdom, and somehow managed to burn the castle down while congratulating themselves for being progressive. Hundreds of millions of dollars later, what's left is a franchise that no one really wants anymore. I'll say now what people once said about other big-budget disasters. I hope it was worth it. I hope the creative choices, the lectures, and the endless virtue signaling all felt justified in the end, because this will go down as one of the biggest missed opportunities in TV history. The Witcher could have been legendary. Instead, it became a cautionary tale about how not to handle a franchise. Anyway, that's all I've got for today. Thanks for watching, my friends. Now go enjoy something that still remembers what good storytelling looks like. This is Hotexpose, signing off.